And I remember sitting at my kitchen table, reading it to my husband that night. And I'm like, look at this deal that Jonathan got. This is unreal. And I read it out loud to him. He goes, no way. Why would anyone ever do that? I could have it signed, sealed, and delivered in 3 to 4 weeks, and you wouldn't have to clean out the house at all. And he's like, wait, so you'd be willing to clean out this house? And I was like, yes, I will clean out that house.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast, where we talk about the agent side of real estate investing. We'll be talking about the successes, the lessons, and all in between. My name is Nico, local real estate agent and investor based out of Montgomery County, Maryland. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host,
Anna Bialek, Northern Virginia realtor and mostly out-of-state investor. So today we have another guest, Kelli Jagmin, who's been on the show before. She's part of our RPM community. She's an amazing friend and also an investor with her husband. I'll let her give you that intro, but we've got Kelli on. We're excited to have her back. We just saw her not too long ago at the RPM retreat, and we have so many questions about just what she's got going on, especially the seller finance deal she just had that went down, and it was amazing. So Kelli, welcome.
back.
Thank you for coming.
Welcome
Thanks
back.
for having me again. I feel honored to be back, especially to be back as a repeat guest. That's very exciting.
Yeah. So for those who haven't met Kelli, please listen to episode 46. I looked it up. Episode 46 talks about her whole background, what she did before that. And there was a lot of gold nuggets about her story. But yeah, we wanted to have you come back on because you were on a panel talking about, a specific deal that you had. And we wanted to kind of do a deep dive on it because I think it's pretty interesting. I have a deal that I'm working on, so I'm going to kind of ask you specific questions, but talk about like the specific deal of where you found it and why that made appealing to you.
Yeah. So, where to begin? So
At the beginning.
We got this. I think we got a call in October from our real estate agent, and she was about to list this property. It's an estate sale. She had known the woman who lived there for about a year, helped her a little bit, take her to a few appointments, and kind of got to know her son a little bit through there. So the woman eventually passed, and the son said, hey, we need to work on selling this house. It's full of stuff. It's got a lot of stuff in it. So she had the wheels were turning. She was working with him. She went over there. She did a CMA. She was talking to him about all the things she recommended doing before it went to list, which was a new roof, clean the whole thing out. And she knew it wasn't going to be brand new. It's a 50-year-old house. They were the original owners, built it. Fun fact, they bought it for $11,000 for the land. And it's a 1.5 acre lot in a really nice Class A town. And then they got a loan for $20,000 to build the house. That's how much things cost back then.
Good times, right?
Yeah, like
well,
all
to
those
be
memes.
fair, his salary was probably like $10,000.
Yeah,
exactly. And at the time, so he was a bricklayer, and so they bricked to save money. They bricked the entire outside of the house on their own, and they bricked 75% of the basement all on their own as well to save. And they just love brick, so that was kind of fun. But it's a 1.5 acre lot in the town that we love investing in the most. It's about 15 minutes away, Class A, great schools, like top notch, very desirable. And it's a 1,750 square foot ranch. Everything is original. Wallpaper, paint, bathrooms, floors. I mean, it was like stepping into a time capsule, but it's adorable. They actually took really good care of it. They loved decorating, and they put some fun tiles and wallpaper. There was 2 rooms. I was like, I think I would actually use this wallpaper. It's so out, it's back in again, Yeah. It was just a little girly and very specific though. So sadly we had to take it down, but there was 5 rolls left. If anybody wants it, I'll be happy to share. But
there you go.
So we went over, so they were going to list it, and she said, look, I know this is a lot of work for you. The son lives 45 minutes away. He has a job of his own, family of his own, life of his own. His brother lives out of state. I don't know exactly where, but it's at least a plane ride away. So he's not around to help. And dad's in a nursing home. So it is going to be a burden to take care of this house and list it. And, he'll make the phone calls he has to, but that's going to cost a lot of money and time and energy as well. So she said, would you be opposed to me bringing over my investor friends? They may be willing, if they're interested in the property, they may be willing to make an offer before you have to do any of that. And he was like, yeah, sure. Bring them by. Totally casual. She invited us over. We went. I will say I looked up the property first. I used a software that I could dig a little bit. I could see that it had been owned for 50 years. They were the original owners, owned free and clear. Looked up the location. It's in the town that I love the best, but the location was a little bit up and down for me, a little bit mixed reviews. It does back to a busy road, which for me is typically a deal breaker. However, it's an 1.5 acre lot, so it's not on top of that busy road, but I was willing to go see it. It wasn't a hard no, right? Where it was right up against a busy road or something. So I said, okay, let me go look. There's value to it not being listed yet. I'm going to come see that house. So took the tour.
Kelli, can I pause you there? Because I know you for quite some years now. And I know before this project, you were like, I wanted to take a break. You and your husband, Zeke, were like, I'm not interested at all. So this conversation of you like, oh, it's on a busy street and, acre lot and things like that, that's the reason why she was hesitant at first, right?
Yeah. And we were also hesitant we were going to take a break. So we had just finished 2 remodels in a row. We bought 2 houses in June. One was a burr. It was a rental that we completely remodeled. And then 3 weeks later, we closed on what ended up being a flip. It was going to be a burr to start with. And somewhere along the way, we realized it made sense to pivot and flip. So we had just done 2 back-to-back renovations, and we're just waiting for that flip to close when we went to go see this house. So of course we said, we want to take a break from a big house in Libertyville. And what does my realtor call with? Another big house in Libertyville. So I was like, stay strong, Kelli. You just shouldn't even go see it. But of course, you got to go see a house that's not even listed yet, right? So with opportunity. So we did go see it. The son was there. He was very kind. He was there making some phone calls and kind of looking through some things, left us on our own. Our realtor walked us around, showed us around. I didn't love the layout. And so for me, a bad layout and that busy street, I was like, I think I might need a pass. And my realtor said, Kelli, I've known you long enough. I see your face. This isn't the one. I can tell on your face you don't love it. I'm like, I don't love it, but I do love that it's owned free and clear and it's not on the MLS yet. And obviously there's opportunity with how full it is with things and it's outdated. Let me just go back. I want to go back to my computer and I want to look up the layout and work with it a little bit and do a little number crunching. So in the meantime, the owner was there, the owner's son was there, and we decided to have a chat with him. So we just kind of wanted to get a feel for what he was looking for. I didn't know any of those details yet about him, that he, has a life and kid of his own. So we chatted for probably 20, 30 minutes just about everything going on. And it was very clear he was just not excited to clean out this house. It's a lot of work, or it's going to be a lot of money. If you have to hire a junk hauler, bless you, or something like that. And he is not close and has a life and is dealing with the whole estate. The house is just one piece of the puzzle. He also has everything else to deal with as well. So we said, okay, I want to go back to my computer. I know you're not in this massive hurry per se. It'll probably take at least a month before it hits the market. But I know you want to know if you need to do any work before, we may be able to make you an offer. So let me just go back and crunch some numbers and I'll get back to you. He said, okay. So that's when I came back to my computer, crunched some numbers. Again, it was because it's on it backs to a busy road. It's not in this traditional neighborhood. It's this little cul-de-sac with only 5 houses off a busy road, but the highway is like right there, not close enough to here, but desirable enough for anyone that commutes to the city or anywhere else. The layout, oh man, I think I made like 8 iterations of what it could be like. I go on to the assessor's website and I grab, it really just shows you the outline of the house. So then I'm penciling where everything is, where walls are, what can open, what makes sense for the least. First it was, we can put an addition on. Well, I'm not going to put an addition on. That's far beyond my scope. It was, if I lived here, I would put an addition here. But I don't live here. I'm a flipper, right? You got to think as minimal change as possible to make the biggest impact possible. And I worked with it and I said, the hardest part was not being able to get a solid comp because the neighborhood is so different than anything else. And I'm sure you guys come across that and know how challenging that could be. So I was like, I just don't know. There's a lot of risk and I don't really have a good idea of what this will sell for. And now we're going into winter. I really won't know until that spring market what that's going to look like. I don't know what rates are going to look like. I don't know what home prices are going to look like. So we were just a little bit torn.
Yeah. No, Kelly, because you talked about this being an estate sale and really listening to the seller, or in this case, the seller's son, what they wanted, right? It was a big burden, both, time-wise and financial-wise, to get the property up and ready for the market. Maybe even emotionally, right? They might have lived in that property and, doing all that work might take a toll on them emotionally. So listening to them, understanding what's important could help you for when you end up crunching those numbers and talking about the seller finance that we'll eventually go into. But I think that's anybody who's listening, like whenever you're going directly to a seller or properties that aren't on the market yet, is really listening to what they want. And not all of them are looking for top dollar at, tomorrow. They might want, certain things, right?
Kelli can tell us about those certain things.
Yeah, get into that next. So yeah, it became apparent it's a burden, right? It is a burden. It's not a simple clean house you just throw on the market tomorrow and it's ready to go and you move on. It is filled with 50 years of stuff. I kind of tried not to use the word hoarder. It wasn't like dirty, filthy, but just 50 years of never getting rid of anything. Yeah. And they grew up in that house their whole life. So there's kids things, there's adult things, there's, 25-year-old clothing still there. They were not good at getting rid of things, I'll say, but it wasn't like dirty, disgusting. So, but it's a project. So it became clear talking to him, he was not excited to clean it out. I came home, I crunched some numbers, figured out the layout, and I said, I need to call a friend. I need to phone a friend to see what to do with this situation. Is it worth it? Is it not? Not being able to come up with a good valuation on the other end was just really terrifying. And it's going to be a big job. I'm talking 6-figure renovation. We've also never done a project that big ever, but it needs windows, roof, everything. It's a big house. Not only is it a 1,750 square foot ranch, there's a full basement underneath that. So you're talking 3,400 square feet. It's on an acre and a half lot. There's a lot to do there. So I actually called someone from our RPM community, Jonathan. He's another coach like Nico is. And we have a good relationship. I know that he's done some seller financing deals in the past. Funny story, about a year ago, I remember specifically, I read this story that Jonathan did. He got a seller financing portfolio package of 6 homes, and the interest rate was super low. The down payment was super low. The woman was very motivated. She wanted ongoing payments for a long time and not this big windfall to come in because of personal things happening. And I remember sitting at my kitchen table, reading it to my husband that night. And I'm like, look at this deal that Jonathan got. This is unreal. And I read it out loud to him. He goes, no way. Why would anyone ever do that? So just remember that. We'll get to that. But I said, he'll be a big help, right? And he's also an agent. So I called him and he said, Kelli, I expressed my fears with the layout and the location and all that. And he said, Kelli, I think your biggest play here is seller financing. You can pitch seller financing because it's owned free and clear. They've had it for 50 years and they spent, pennies on it to buy it. And I think you need to pitch seller financing. And I was like, I think that is my best bet here. What do I say? I've only ever done this on paper where I've said, hey, we've kind of done a 2-offer strategy in the past. If I have to go the traditional route, I can pay this much. But if you're willing to finance it for X number of months or X number of years, I can offer you this much, even more. I've never talked to anyone directly about that. Never done this before. And so he gave me some great one-liners. The biggest one that I liked, and I'm sure you as agents use this, but to get it up to today's buyers' standards, it's going to cost, a lot, or we need to do a lot of work. I like that I don't want to be offensive, right? It's his mom's house. I don't want to offend and say, oh God, it's tragic. It's going to need, so we have to gut the whole thing. And I don't know if he's going to be emotional about that because he grew up in the house as well. So I just wanted to tread lightly, but also convey it will need a lot of work and a lot of clean out. I'm happy to be the one to do that. I know your number, but I can't offer you that if I have to go the traditional route. So, and then I think that was the biggest takeaway, was that line, how to say that, and just not using the term. He's like, don't use the term seller financing. Don't say owner financing. Say, if you're willing to be a little creative, or you're willing to carry this payment a little longer. So that was really helpful as well.
Yeah.
I thought Nico was going to say something.
No, I do have a question, because you talked about like listening to the seller, right? And what are like the things that he said that would give you like the light bulb in your head that he might be open to being creative, to being open to something like that? Was there anything that he said?
I think just knowing he's kind of by himself here, right? He's got, and to be honest, I creeped on him a little bit to see like, where do you live? How far away are you? We asked him town, right? And then I kind of looked up, where is he? I saw him on LinkedIn to see like, what kind of job does he have? He's a busy guy, right? And he does okay. So I don't think the money is it really is a burden more than the money. I had talked to someone a few years ago who was in a situation where they were going to be selling their mom's estate, and they needed the money like yesterday. So they want every penny. Money is all that matters. It's just a very different situation than, okay, this will be nice. I mean, but I don't need it today or yesterday. So you could just tell his priorities were a little bit different. The biggest thing, so I'll fast forward a little bit. I got on a phone call with our realtor, and I said, this is what I'm looking to do. I can make an offer, but let me just explain what I'm looking to do, because I don't know if you're familiar with seller financing. So I explained everything to her, and she said, you're not trying to cut me out, are you? I said, nope, absolutely not. You're a dual agent here, and you're going to get it on the other end. When I list it to flip it, you're going to get that sale as well. She goes, okay, great, I'm in. She said, you're going to be able to answer his questions better. Would you be willing to just pop on a conference call with him? I'm like, of course. So she texted him while we were talking to see if he was available. He said yes. She goes, let's do this. And I start panicking like, oh my gosh, I'm about to get on a call with him, and I haven't practiced this at all. I have a couple little notes that Jonathan told me to say, and it's not like I practiced this. And, it was just really just on the fly, go, no time like the present, it's happening. So she got us on a call. And I said, hi, remember us? We met earlier, and, I was crunching some numbers. I think it was about 24 hours later. And, do think we are willing to make an offer. And I know the number that, you were hoping to get somewhere closer to like $430,000 for the house. If I have to go the traditional route and go get a mortgage and put 20% down and do all that, crunching my numbers and knowing what it's going to take to get it up to today's buyer standards and, still make a little bit of money on the other end, I would need to offer closer to like $390,000, just to let you know. However, there's another option. I believe your mom owned the house free and clear. And he was like, yep, they paid it off decades ago or whatever. Okay. There's another option. If you were willing to be a little creative with me or work on the timeline as to which we could pay it off, I could offer you $430. Because in that case, I don't have to go the traditional route and have all these extra fees and paperwork and headaches and all that. And it would kind of mitigate my risk to cut some of that down, and I could offer you more. Is that something that you'd be interested in? And he was like, okay, I'm listening. And he goes, I said, well, just remember, so if we can do this, I can close in like 3 or 4 weeks. You probably won't even be ready to have this house. Maybe you'll have the house listed in 3 to 4 weeks after doing, cleaning it out and paying people a bunch of money to do that. I could have it signed, sealed, and delivered in 3 to 4 weeks, and you wouldn't have to clean out the house at all. You could literally just like take the few things you want, walk away, and I'll take it from there if you'll be willing to push off that payment. And he's like, wait, so you'd be willing to clean out this house? And I was like, yes, I will clean out the house. He said, okay, so what would that look like timeline wise? I said, great question. I think this house would take 3, maybe 4 months to renovate. Then we would put it on the market and hopefully close within 60 days of that. So of course we would put a maximum on that, right? So let's say that's about 6 months. So I'm hoping the day that I get paid is the day that you get paid. You are the first one to get paid when this house sells, your full $430,000. I'm going to fund the renovation. I'm going to get whatever's left, but you get paid before I do. And he's like, okay. And then we're going to put a cap on it. I'm thinking maybe 12 months, like if things really went south, if the renovation wasn't ready, got held up with permits, it didn't sell for what we were hoping for, then I would put a max on it at 12 months. At 11 months, I would go get a traditional mortgage and go that route and pay you off. So you would get paid first, and now I have to deal with the rest of it. So he said, okay, doesn't sound too bad to me. Just to clarify, who is going to clean out the house?
That's his big selling point.
Yeah. He was so excited.
I like the way you talked about, you used, it's kind of a sales tactic, right? Understanding like what they needed and kind of weaving it into the conversation. We'll handle that. You don't have to put it on the market. You'll get your payments, we'll be able to close in 3 weeks instead of you having to do all this work over the next month to get it ready to list. So kind of using those and weaving it into the conversation is awesome. It's a good sales tactic for sure.
And just the risk, you don't really know what you're going to get if you go to market. If someone thinks it's worth more, it could go up. You're going to have to do work to get there. Or this is kind of like the guaranteed, if that's the price you wanted and you're going to go to market, it kind of just cuts his risk a little bit too, if you're willing to carry that payment. So we did kind of talk about that. And so we were going to hang up. He's like, I got something I'm doing right now. But yeah, if we can have the attorneys start drafting it up, like I'm fine with that. I am going to talk to my brother and just run it by and my dad. And I thought, oh, family's involved. I thought he was the sole decision. He said, I just want to let you know, I am the sole decision maker and I'm on board. I just want to run it by them and see if they have any questions. And if I don't know how to answer it, I want to have you answer it. And, we'll go from there. But I think this could definitely happen because your realtor trusts you, then I trust you too. So that was a big key as well. He's like, I know she was, friendly with my mom, took good care of her. If she trusts you, I trust you. And then we hung up and I went,
now what?
Yeah. So my poor husband was out of town. He was going to a college football game with some friends and he was in the car on the way there. And I called and he was, hey babe, you're on speaker. And I was like, oh, maybe I don't know if this is better or worse that I'm on speaker, but I think I just bought a house. He's like, what? Had to explain that whole thing. He had kind of said, go home and crunch the numbers. I think we saw it that Friday and he was leaving and I did. And I just didn't know that it was going to go into, he said, we'll put the numbers together like Sunday and then we can talk to the realtor. And you guys know time is everything, right? Because that's the difference of a few phone calls. I saw he was already on the phone call starting to see if they could get a roof replaced through insurance. And he's looking around, assessing how many things, right? Like the ball's rolling. So Sunday probably would have been fine, but you don't know, what mood you catch them in or when, or if they've already invested in some things that are going to happen. I didn't really want to wait. And I didn't know we'd pop right on the phone with him, but we did. And it was, oh my gosh, that just happened. And I was like hyperventilating. Did that just happen? He said yes. So that was kind of wild.
You texted Jonathan too, didn't you? And you're like, guess what I did? Because I think that's actually when we were at dinner.
I think I texted him before I text my husband. I was like, Jonathan, you'll never guess, your words worked and you were right. So it was just wild because it's just like such an adrenaline rush. You're like, the worst I can say is no, right? Yeah. Or I'll think about it. Or I didn't expect to hop on a conference call right then. And I didn't expect him to say yes kind of easily. But I think he was just really excited about not having to clean out the house, to be honest.
That's amazing. I think so. Even if he would have said no, I still think it would have made you stand out to him. I feel like when we do explain the seller finance and we can do it well or creative financing to someone, it makes you stand out like as an investor or as like a problem solver versus you're just trying to like gouge him for money. I'm curious though, you said you had trouble finding comps. How did you come to the 430 number? Like, was it because that was his number or how'd you figure that?
So it is very hard. It's not a traditional neighborhood. All the other houses that I'm seeing that have sold in the last, year and a half or so that we're looking at comps are in traditional neighborhoods. They're a lot higher. So already your value is going to be lower. And that was what I didn't want to go into details and like offend him about the house. Obviously he grew up there, but I just said, there's a few factors that it's just hard for me to determine what this is going to look like on the other end. Is kind of like how simply and vague I kind of said it, where I need to mitigate some risk that we might not get what I would hope we would get because of a few factors. So I just need to mitigate my risk, and you taking on the financing would really help that. So we didn't go into too much details after that. And then it just went right. He had to go and it was, yes, let me talk. And he came back. He didn't even really have any other questions. He's like, nope, my brother and my dad are on board. And we just had the attorneys start drafting it up. And the attorneys were like, what is this? They're not used to seeing things like this either. And I remember his attorney, which, okay, again, we have a dual agent situation, right? So it's her 2 attorneys that she recommended. And somewhere along the line, we just started working with this one, and we've been with him for a long time. She also works with this other one who I've met along the way, but I'm like, I'll keep you in mind if, things go south and I ever feel I need to switch. But I knew who she was. And I'm like, now we're pitting those 2 against each other, right? And she's, I'm seeing her pit bull side of working with her on the bad end where you don't want to be, right? She's like, okay, well, one, this isn't even a legal sale if there's no money tendered. You have to put something down, because it was like 0% down, 0% interest, no payments along the way. And she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, but I don't have to clean out the house, right? Like, that's what happened. So it was like wild. And then they came back, and then the attorney was trying to convince him, like, you really need to collect interest or start, maybe we don't pay along. They wanted to do monthly payments at first. The attorney, not him, the attorney. And it was like, you know what? How about like after, 7 months, if we haven't had any bites yet, sure, then we can start accruing interest, or then we can start collecting payments. It was just, they were so like flabbergasted that somebody would do this deal. They were trying to ruin it, and change it. And you shouldn't give them a 12-month balloon. You should make it a 9-month balloon. And I think they came back and suggested 6 months at first. And I was like, ma'am, the house, it'll take 3 to 4 months to be done. And then we're going to list it and hope it sells 45 to 60 days out. But you're right at that line that if I don't know that exact date, or I think it's going to be 6 months and a day, then I have to go get a traditional mortgage. That's the whole point, is to not have to do that. So you're kind of being a little silly with the 6-month recommendation. So I was like, I'll meet you. How about 10? I don't think this is going to go south. I think by then, especially knowing the time of year we're listing, and, okay, by month 10, does that make you feel better? Then we're in the fall. So if we've missed the whole spring and summer, we have more problems than that if no one wants to buy it. But how about 10 months? Will that make you feel better? And she said, sure. So we did settle with a very small down payment, very small, like you need money to make this legal kind of small, and no payments along the way, no interest accrued, just a 10-month balloon. That's when the money's due by then. And I said, we expect you to have it in 6 months, maximum worst case scenario, 10 months. So they said, okay, but you're getting the number you want without having to clean it out or get the new roof or anything.
Yeah. I think that was the big point, right? The seller obviously doesn't want to clean it out, and then he's getting the price he wanted. So you were able to solve that issue and then work the terms that made sense for you. So this is definitely not the traditional way to buy a home, right? And you talked about you being nervous, having these conversations, and I'm actually in the process of doing something similar. I won't go too deep into it to not jinx it, but most of the time you're doing seller financing, you're trying to buy a rental where you're, 30-year or 25-year loan, and you're making monthly payments at a lower interest to the seller than you would at a bank, at our traditional bank, which is like 6.5%, 7.5% interest rates right now. But yours is unique, where you're using the seller financing as a tool to flip, where you're not using hard money or private money where you have those big holding costs, right? So I just wanted to highlight that, because that's a different type of seller financing, but you can use it for people that like you and your husband, the DIY duo. You're looking to flip this one, right? The creative financing, there's so many different ways, but this one is unique. And why we wanted to bring you on the show is you're using it to give the seller what they want, but also help you along the way with less holding costs.
Yeah. And just even, the interest carry and having to put that down payment, on $430,000, you're talking about a $86,000 down payment, then securing the financing, which isn't scary. It's just work, and there's fees and all kinds of things. So it really, in the case of flipping, and I had a few people come up to me at the retreat after talking about this story on the panel, and they're like, a seller financing flip? I never thought of that. And I'm like, I guess I didn't think of it as too crazy out of the ordinary. It really just feels like a postponed payment, right? Like it's just a couple months down the line, but you don't have to do anything and I can get this ball rolling a lot faster. And it really did. It saved us a lot on interest. So we would have had, you know, a 20% down payment. We had like a 1% down payment. If the mortgage payment along the way, let's say it takes, you know, 6 months to complete, that's $20-something thousand along the way. And if we're using a private money lender, we already have to fund the renovation, which we estimated would be $125,000, our biggest renovation to date. So, you know, I jotted it down for you to be specific, but we would have been all in $234,000 on this house and then spent, you know, almost $12,000 in interest carry to pay that back. And we have a very favorable interest rate with some family lenders situations. Yeah. I mean, it could be a lot more if you were using like a hard money loan or something like that. And then in this case, you know, you're cutting the down payment. There's no mortgage. So all that just made me feel more comfortable with the deal, and not knowing exactly what it's going to sell for, I just felt a lot better with a smaller investment. We kind of are just funding the renovation and a little bit more juice on top of that. It's a lot closer to the renovation number than it would have been to go the traditional route and have all those extra fees and carrying costs. So it kind of just helped mitigate that risk. And we did the day of the closing. Funny, we ended up that morning on November 8th, I think November 7th, we closed on the flip that we were under contract for that morning at 10 a.m. And then so we bought this house in the afternoon at 3 p.m. So it ended up being the same day. So remember that little break we talked about? It was about 6 hours. But in the meantime, we went over there to do a final walkthrough, and the son was there. He was picking up like one last piece of furniture that he wanted to take. And we got to talking. And, you know, at this point, you know, it wasn't like a negotiation. It's happening. It's later this day. The day is here. Like everyone's in a, you know, good mood and all that. And I was like, so how does this feel for you? You know, is it weird? Like, how do you feel about the house? Is it like nostalgic? I don't know. How do you feel about it? And he's like, oh, I know it needs to be totally updated. I have my good memories from when we were a kid and we loved the neighborhood and playing outside in this big old front yard. We had like soccer games out here. And I said, okay, well, would you want to come see it when it's done? And he's like, I would love that. Because I was like, I didn't want to ask if, you know, if that's weird for you, don't feel pressure to say yes. But he's like, no, I would love that. And I'm going to ask my dad too. And I'm like, okay, that'd be great. You're welcome to. I was like, we'll just keep in touch. I actually sent him a text yesterday and said, we're about a month from being done. So keep your eye out soon. I'll have an invite for you soon. But no, it was like very feel good. And he was excited. And I was like, thank you for trusting us to do this. And again, he was like, if Liz trusts you, I trust you. And I think the funniest part of all of it was to clean out the house. We had 13 friends come over the day after we closed and had a 30-yard dumpster delivered. And that house was empty in 4 hours.
Wow.
4 hours.
I'm very
13 friends, but
I'm
4
really
hours.
jealous of your friends and your crew that come in the very next day. What do you give them? Pizza and beer, you said?
Basically, yeah. We buy them lunch. We bought them all steak dinners this time. We're like, this isn't the first time we've asked for help. We need to start doing more. But I don't know. They just make it really fun. And this time we have a lot of boys in our neighborhood. They're mostly all of our neighbors. And they're like, do you mind if I bring my kiddo? Do you mind if I bring And I'm like, if they want to be there, like by all means. So we had this little crew of kids, right? We had all the dads that were ready to help and a couple moms too. I can't leave out the moms, and me too. And I told all the kiddos, I was like, hey guys, this is a treasure hunt. We have no idea what we're going to find in this house, but if you find something and you want to keep it, it's yours. If you find like some kind of treasure, they're like, okay. And that just really sped them up to start going to clean it out. It was very funny. They were excited.
That. Did they find anything good?
I was really praying for gold bars, but we did not find any gold bars. They were excited to find like random things. One of the kids was like, oh my God, these are Tommy Bahama slippers. Do you know, I just looked this up. These are worth like $100. And I'm like, they're yours, buddy. They're all yours. So it was little things. I think the funniest thing was one of the boys was like, Kelli, what are all these books? They all look the same. And I'm like, those are encyclopedias.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is Google before it was Google. You had to look in a book and all the information you could possibly know was in that book. And he's like, what? Like just flabbergasted by it. So
yeah, they used to sell them at the supermarket for like $1.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
Myself.
So,
Yeah.
Kelly, you guys are mid renovation, right? And I know we talked about the last couple of renovations that you had. You and your husband were doing all of it, or you were beginning to delegate a little bit. But I know this project you're trying to offload. I don't know if you see the book right here, the Who Not How book. And I know you're reading that, and we've talked about this, but not only me, but a few other people in the community. I'm just curious to, one, what part of the renovation are you guys at? And two, like, what did you decide to actually delegate to other people?
Yeah, this has been a big hot topic the last few weeks, just like really debating. I read Who Not How. I read it in like 4 days. I just cranked it out on an audiobook as I was driving, but thank you for that recommendation. We had, you know what? We love DIY. Literally, our Instagram handle is the DIY duo. We've been doing projects for years and we love renovating and, I don't know, making our house how we want it to be. But when we started renovating investment properties a couple years ago, again, it started out all fun, but we have a family now. We have, a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and it's very hard being away. And we both have jobs. This isn't like a full-time job. If it was, that would be a little different. But, my husband's doing this nights and weekends, and it's tough to be apart. And, I'll go over there. I have to hire a sitter if I want to go over there and help, or I'm going during the day, but then my work gets pushed off to at night. So yeah, it was challenging. So we said, okay, we need to start hiring out little by little, because he is very handy, and it's like, oh, we've got all the tools and we've got the knowledge. It stinks to not use that, but just to speed things up. And, you just have to start doing that at some point. You get a little burnt out. So we first started hiring out floors. Then we started hiring out paint. This project, we hired out tile for the first time. And I will say my husband has never been so excited. When these guys came in with a crew of 4 and they knocked it out, 3 bathrooms, like tiled shower walls and the floors in 5 days. And it's perfect. And they did things that he never would have thought of. He's like, I'm throwing out the tile saw. I'm never doing this again. I'm over it. We're never doing tile again. So it's getting a little bit more and more excited. We're definitely trying to think of ourselves more of the project managers, not the project doers, because it gets tiring when you have, it's like a third full-time job. So
Yeah.
we're like just reminding ourselves, we got into this to have like passive income. If it's not passive, it's just another job, right? So now we're really starting to shift our thinking into making it more into a business, not a job. We need to have good subcontractors that we like. It helps to have that knowledge of how to do things so we can see, I have like one single mom friend who's investing, and she just keeps getting taken by these contractors. They keep taking advantage of her because if you don't know and you're putting your trust into them and it's not right, or they take your money and all that. So that stinks. But so I feel I'm glad that we know, we have that knowledge of how to do things and what it should be and what the order of operations is and all that. But yeah, we're trying to hire out a little bit more. So
Yeah, we hired out tiles for our recent renovation. And yeah, like you said, they're in and out, they're quick. They do it really, like a crew that only focuses on tile, you realize like how efficient and how much better they can do it than, in our case, we have a great crew, but they're not tile guys per se. And, if Zeke's out there doing it and it takes 3 weeks and these guys come in 4 or 5 days, like, that time currency is helpful as well.
yeah. And, even just like bending the tile, man, oh, that is a job. Just lifting them all and cleaning them all, grouting and cleaning and making them perfect, and they get the perfect layout. Yeah, it's a whole job that he is happy to never have to do again.
What is it that Brian doesn't like to do anymore, Anna?
Drywall.
No more drywall. Delegate.
No, we refuse. It is. I think this came up last time we were on the podcast. It is the worst job. How does this come up every time? It's the worst. And they just come in and they make it smooth in 5 seconds and are like, I'm going to let this dry for 20 minutes and I'll be painting it. And I'm like, that would have taken 6 different times of, skim coat and sand and skim coat and sand. And it's never ending.
Yes. Yes, I agree. Although I think you said something earlier that's worth repeating. It does make a difference. Like, you guys have done it. It's just like property management on my side. Like, unless you've actually done it yourself, you don't know the order of operations. You don't know what quality work is. So it is, I think, beneficial to get your hands dirty and not think of investing. I mean, it's not passive anyway, but some people are like, oh, I'll just buy it and like farm out the work to a contractor, get a property manager, but they don't actually know how any of that works.
Yeah. And that'll just cost you more time and money while you try to figure it out. So I would never say I regret anything. Like, it's been such an experience, but I'm saying like we're evolving or graduating up a little bit now, where we need to, take the next step if you want to grow a little bit, or just even just the, having more time with family. Our kids are getting older and all that. Last summer we bought 2 houses in June, and we put a pool in a few years ago because my kids love to swim, and my husband was not in that pool nearly as much as he should have been. So that's just the new, okay, we need to just start working smarter, not harder, and, evolving from there.
Yeah, you definitely put the reps in. So now it's time to build the business. Like, instead of working in the business, work on the business. Is that what it is?
Yes. And yeah, exactly. Like, don't build a job, build a business, because all that gave us was a third job between the two of us. So that's kind of, not feeling passive at all and not able to grow. But I actually did make an offer a couple days ago on another house, very similar situation, where it's like, I'm like, is this our new specialty now? I will clean out the house for you and I'll do all the work so you don't have to. So now I'm kind of becoming known as, I don't know, an estate sale hunter or something. But I don't want to say that in a bad way. I don't want to say that in a bad way, but there is kind of like this like need for it. When people get these homes in an estate situation and it's a burden and they have lives, like, it's not only the house, they have to figure out the entire estate and all the things. There's so much paperwork. And I went through it with my grandma a few years ago, seeing my mom have to do all the work. I mean, it took like a year, maybe a little more, to even get it wrapped up. And it's just a lot. And if they have a lot of stuff and you don't have a lot of time, like, I'll do it for you. Bring in that crew and we'll clean it out and make it pretty and move on. So I like the part of making it like ready for the next generation to live in it. Like, that's exciting to me to see the before and after, and like, oh great, like another new family is going to move in here now and enjoy it for the next 50 years. So
wait, what's that? I have a question. Wait, no,
go ahead.
I was like, I want to ask.
Oh my God. I was like, that? Were you getting violent now?
Was that a belt? You got it, Anna. Go ahead. You got the question. I don't want any smoke.
We aren't going to stop you.
Okay, so maybe this is what Nico was going to say. So, not to get into specifics of this new deal because it's in the works, but like, how did you find that one? Did your agent bring that one to you, or did you find this some other way?
Our agent is the bomb. I don't know if people still say that, but our agent is the bomb, and she is always on the lookout for us. So that's why I think, we kind of had this talk right after the retreat as well. So I'll give you guys a little plug. Like, having a good agent is freaking gold. If they can actually work with investors. I actually, a few years ago, was down the path of getting my license and decided not to because my agent is so good. Why would I go compete against her for that? She's out there working for me 40 hours a week, because when she's out with other clients and looking at other homes and she's going, oh, this one might be a good one for Kelli and Zeke. Then she's calling us, texting us saying, hey, I think you should come see this. And this is another one that she's going to have the opportunity to list, and it's full. And they're moving the homeowner into a nursing home or assisted living home, and the sons are responsible for selling it. I'm getting deja vu, but it's very similar. Not 50 years old, more like 30 years old, where everything's just kind of at the end of its lifespan and its time. And they know if they list it, they're going to get the bottom end of the price range for, that size house in that area. But it's also a lot of work. So she's basically going to insist, hey, I think we should spend some money. We should put all new carpet, get it all painted, do a couple light fixtures if we're going to list it. Can I bring in one option that would help you not have to do any of that? My friends who invest, they said, okay. So we just went and saw it last week. And I said, in this case, I could not offer you, they want a pretty hefty price tag. I said, I cannot offer you that. To make it work for me, I'd have to offer you significantly lower, more like this number. There's also only, this one's a little up in the air for me, but the comp of the same layout down the street sold a few months ago for the highest amount in that town. And so, of course, my realtor's going, oh, look what you can get. And I'm like, again, that's one little unicorn, and I need to make sure really can't bank on that. So I have to underwrite a little lower. And that makes me nervous if it's a higher end for that town. How many buyers are looking at that price point? I would rather. So that was with the example of finishing the basement. This has an unfinished basement. Basements are big here in the Midwest. I would rather. So I ran the numbers and I was like, I just don't think I can get anywhere near that. Then I ran them again going, what if we don't finish the basement? And we went to a different price point and attracted more buyers at that price point. So we were kind of crunching our numbers. And I said, okay, I think I can make you an offer. It's a lot lower than what you want, but you don't have to do the carpet, the paint, the clean out, the light fixtures, showings, anything. I said the same thing. I could get this rolling in 3 to 4 weeks. You don't have to do anything. Just move mom into her next place, handle everything else, and we'll take care of it And if you want to come for a tour at the end, I'll be happy to. And they own a restaurant. I'll leave some good Google reviews and Yelp reviews out there for your restaurant. But that's what I can offer. I can't do a lot more to make it worthwhile for us. So take it or leave it kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll definitely have to get an update on that one. But for all the agents listening, I love that Kelli mentioned like the agent is even that first deal that was her sounded like her first time doing like a seller finance deal. And she just wanted to make sure she doesn't get cut out of the deal. But being able to understand, all these creative ways that you can sell a home, most agents know the traditional way, right? By put it on the market, get a buyer. But having you as a friend and knows that like, all right, Kelli and Zeke will close on this deal. I'll get paid. I've done it before, whether it's a flip or whatever. So all the agents listening, like being knowledgeable about this, and even if you're able to like, essentially double dip, right? You're buying your one deal, one house, you can help them on the front end and the back end. That's one reason why me as an agent, I love that. And you building relationships with the agent and letting them know that your buy box, what you're actually looking for. And most importantly, closing on the deal, doing what you say you're going to do as a buyer. Nothing's worse than, the agents that work really hard to get these deals or the wholesalers that work really hard and then last minute things happening. So I just wanted to highlight that for all the agents listening, if you're being an investor friendly, you're actually learning and understanding the process of what makes a good deal for the buyer. Right. And go ahead, chime in.
So this is more of a question for Kelli. So does your agent, she clearly understands what your buy box is and she knows that you can close, but is she actually interested in learning about real estate investing, or does she just use you as a tool? Like she knows like, okay, if this doesn't work, I have a friend where I can funnel them to my friend, but it doesn't sound like she actually knows or understands creative financing or investing strategies, unless I'm misunderstanding.
Or she's learning as she goes.
Well,
she's learning.
Does she want to learn, or is she just like, not my swim lane, I'll just pass it on?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I appreciated is that she was willing to have the conversation. Like I said, let me explain the creative, because you're right. They mostly list and it's rinse and repeat, right? It's the same thing. It's a traditional sale. It's, going down that same path. They know those parts of it. But so I will say she wasn't super versed in seller financing, but the fact that she was willing to listen to me explain it and then was like, look, I'm not going to be able to explain this in a way that I won't be able to. If he asks me one question, I'm not going to be able to answer it. I will hop, as long as you're not trying to cut me out of this, I will hop on a call and you can explain it to him. Because in that regard, it wasn't even like listed yet. We're still, and we had met, so she knew that we met them. I will say she also has a whole team. She has like 6 or 7 women on her team with a manager who's been doing it for 30 years. They all know our buy box too. So they're out there. And if they're getting listings coming their way, they're going, hey, Liz, I think your buyers, they might want to come see this. So I've had the opportunity to see a few homes before it comes on the market as well. So again, I for that reason, do not want to be an agent. Like I will let her do her thing because she's looking out for me more than I have time to be looking out for me. And I don't expect her to be, an expert in creative financing, but I do really appreciate that she was willing to listen and work with me on that, because there's been many times, even in the past, if I saw a listing pop on and I've like even texted that agent, hey, I see this. Do you think your seller would be open to this? And they're like, oh no, they're not doing anything. Well, can you ask? No, they won't even ask or have that. They don't. Do you know them? Are you confident that much to say you truly know what they do or don't want? And it helps when they're actually willing to do it and ask the question. That's all it takes. You just never know. I'm trying to get you to close sooner. That's all, that's helpful to you too. So yes, she knows that we will close. She knows that we're consistent. We've done it this many times. I appreciate that she put trust in her clients, in us. Like, I'm going to bring them through. If it works out and they make you an offer, that's one type of offer. And even on this one, I said, if you don't want to go with us, this new offer, that's fine. I understand. You can put it, if you have the time and want to put in the work of cleaning out the house, doing some, light refreshments and selling it and getting more, that's fine. I'm just trying to take the work off your table. I'm the easy button. If you don't want, that's fine.
Yeah. Our main job as real estate agents is to get the seller from A to B. So giving them options like, a creative solution like Kelli's talking about, or going the long route. And it really depends. Every seller is going to be a little bit different. So I think that's pretty cool. I did want to ask you just kind of overall, like, so I know you mix in, you have rentals, you've done some burrs, you've done a flip, and now you're doing creative financing. So I'm just curious to like how this recent deal kind of aligns with your goals of you and Zeke, your goals for your portfolio in these upcoming months and years.
Yeah, this one. So after we had done the last flip, and that was what we purchased in the summer. It was a another foreclosure estate sale. It was actually a reverse mortgage. But anyway, we did that one with the intention of making it a burr. I really want to grow our rental portfolio. I've always said I want, 10 properties in 10 years when I first got started. And hopefully, that'll be just enough later down the line. And that one pivoted into a flip. And then that one helped like solidify our buy box for what we'd want in a rental, because when we tried to rent that one out, I saw how hard it was going to be to rent, or what types of clients I was attracting. And that was like transient. I'm only going to be here for 1 year kind of, and there'll be this constant turnover. So that really helped us morph our buy box and really hone it down and say, ooh, I don't know if I want a property like this. I think we need to stick with the other types that we have. And so when this one came on, it was an instant, we're not going to debate if it's a burr or if it's a rental. This is not our buy box to keep. It is big and it's just not. So at least that helped us know, exactly what we're going to do with it. And I think in the future, we'll have an easier time doing that, just kind of knowing what we're looking for. Yeah, I guess when you spell out all of our different experiences, we've had a lot of experiences in a few years, but I really just want to have a rental portfolio. And if something comes up that makes more sense as a flip, it's a flip. But funny, I did have this conversation with my husband the other day, and I was like, what are we looking for? What are we, it's a new year, got to make some new goals. What are we looking for? And I said, I think I'm looking for just more rentals than flips. Rentals will pay you time and time again. A flip, you only get paid once. And there's a lot of fees and things and taxes, and those realtors take so much money, but worth it. But, it just adds up, and you only get paid once. And then the taxes. And he said, actually, I was thinking that I love the flips, and I'm like, oh no. You'd rather have flips than rentals, and I'd rather have rentals than flips. So
but
we'll see.
Having a mix though could definitely help. It helps grow the active income to buy rentals, right? Where you can cash flow a little bit more. So I mean, I'm doing the same thing. I know Anna's done a few burrs and remodel projects. So having a mix of flips and rentals isn't such a bad thing.
Yeah, I had that same talk with Coach Carson a few years ago when I was like, what are we doing with our lives? And he's like, it's great that you're building this portfolio of rentals that will really pay later with, time and appreciation. And, you'll have the rents will go up, and, it'll get paid down, and you'll have that, that equity later. But that's slow money. You need some fast money too, if you actually want to do this more, to scale. So I thought that was a good way to put it. And I will say I talked to someone else last night who's also in our group, and he was saying, I wanted to circle back to that agent thing. He said he had an agent. We were talking about flipping, and he wanted to learn a little bit more and get pros and cons from me and things. So we were having that same conversation, and I said, okay, well, do you have an agent? Because he was looking at one particular property, and he goes, well, I do. And I was like, oh, I can already tell in your voice you don't like them. And he goes, he's just not going to be willing to even put in a lower offer on this place. Like, he's only going to be willing to deviate like, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000 from the list price. And I want to make an offer like 50 grand lower. So I don't even think he's going to do it. I'm like, well, I think you have the wrong agent. Let's talk about that. So
yeah, I think we talked about this on a previous episode. I can't remember which one, but being an investor friendly agent is you understand the numbers, you understand what rehab costs, you understand ARV. Being comfortable with writing an offer that's below asking. I mean, you can list the house for whatever. If a home is worth, $300,000 and you put it up for $1 million, that doesn't mean that they're going to get that, right? So understanding that, what I like to do, and it's a pro tip for any agent, is maybe in the email, do a one sheet of why the offer is X. You can give a range of the rehab costs, closing costs, the estimated profit that you need for the flip. And that way, like the listing agent, the agent on the other end can have an idea that they can give to the seller of why you're getting this type of offer, especially if the home's sitting on the market a little bit longer. That's basically saying the market's saying that your home's not worth this much. So for all the agents listening, it's okay to write an offer, even if it's not the full, in Maryland, 60-page offer. Maybe write an email saying, hey, this is what my buyer's thinking. This is why they're thinking this way. Give 2 or 3 comps, and it doesn't hurt. So yeah, it sounds like that person wasn't willing to do that. You might have to get somebody else that is.
Yeah, I love Henry Washington says the list price is between you and Jesus. Literally, you're just like winging it. If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's you can make up whatever you want. But.
Especially after the pandemic, the home prices got so inflated that sellers just look at Zillow's estimates and they're like, I'm going to go 10K over its estimate and that's what I'm going to get. And, you know, the market has shifted a little bit since then. So it's eye-opening to a lot of sellers.
Yeah, or they go, oh, my neighbor got this, so I can get the same thing. I'm like, well, your neighbor got that when rates were 3% and the market was hopping. It's not that anymore. So good luck to you.
Yes. So would you tell this person in RPM, go find another agent?
Oh, for sure. I was like, let me tell you what my agent does. You just need a good one because you never know. And you don't, how can you, you know what? I learned a few years ago when there was a house in my buy box that was like sitting there and I'm like, that house is so overpriced. And a few months later, it did sit for a couple months. And I was like, it was listed at like $350. And I was like, I would need to get that house for like $300. They are crazy. But when you think about what a gap that is or what a percentage of the cost, you're like, they're never going to take that. Guess what? It sat for 3 months and it closed at 305 a couple months later. And I was like, well, dang it. If I knew they would have taken 305, I would have offered 305. And that was my wake up of like, but you didn't offer 305.
Yeah.
And right, always make the offer.
And just like
the answer is always no if you don't ask.
Yeah.
And just like what you said earlier, like when I forget who said it, but like offering that seller financing with little down payment, no payments, no carrying costs, like who's going to do that? Well,
the attorney said that.
Yeah, that was it. The attorney. Yeah. You have to shoot your shot and, get the feedback, right? That makes sense. Speaking
of attorneys and what they said, are you considering using the same attorney or are you going to look for an attorney that's more, because I talk about this when I talk to people about becoming investor friendly, is find attorney and an accountant that is real estate savvy because they're not all created equal because they don't understand. Are you thinking about going with the same attorneys or are you going to do some hunting for someone that may understand this better?
So that was who was representing him. So the other side. So they were trying. So my agent has 2 attorneys that she refers. When we started working with her, we just started working with one and we've been with him for, 7, 8 closings now. And he's fine. He actually came by. I always think of attorneys as being so busy. He literally came by the house last weekend. He was like, guys, I couldn't see the before pictures of this house because it wasn't on the market. Could I swing by at some point? Like, I actually do love seeing this kind of stuff. He's like, if you need any help. And I'm like, you are an attorney. You're offering to come by and help and see it. But he's like, no, I actually love this stuff. So he's purely a real estate agent. So no, we're fine with him. It was the other one that she referred. So I had met her, our agent has these like events and you kind of meet people at other things. And she said, I just want to introduce you. This is the other attorney I refer. So if anything, I know you love him, but if anything ever goes south, like this is your next, your next option here. So then seeing her represent the other side, the seller side on that deal, I was like, you are a pit bull. And I was like, maybe I should work with you. But yeah, we're happy with our guy for now. But it's funnier seeing attorneys try to do something out of the box. And they're like, what is this? Why would you do it? And, I know we were talking about at the retreat, like seller finding, you're making up your own deal. Like this isn't a standard black and white, cut and dry kind of thing. You're just making up, this works for me. If that works for you, that's great. Let's just write it up. Just write up what we're asking you to write up. Don't try to interject on your own ideas. Like we were already there. Why are you slowing this down? Is be kind of what it became, Just let it be. You're not here to give your opinion. Unless it's something like to really protect them.
Illegal.
But they're like, we already decided, just write it up how we want it and stop changing things.
Having a teammate that obviously make sure that you get to the finish line and things like that is so important. But
who came up with the standards? It was the banks. The banks wrote their own standards. So why can't we?
Exactly.
Especially if everybody's
I'm not going
happy
with the bank
with it.
Yeah. I just like too that it's like, I don't have to go. I basically told them, and I tell this to my private money lenders too, like I can either go pay Chase Bank interest or I can pay you interest. I guess in this case, there's no interest, but it's like, I don't want to go pay them. In this case, I'm going to be charged a lot of fees by them. So I can't offer you what I'd like to offer you. So it's just, I know I'd rather make, some normal people's pockets a little bigger than Chase Bank. for example.
No, and I love this topic, and I'm sure we can go on for another 30 minutes, but we are running close on time. So I just wanted to talk about your long-term vision for your portfolio. I guess this could be your last question. I know you're working on this current deal. You might have one in the works. We won't jinx it, but what are you and Zeke looking for? I know you guys are looking for flips and rentals, but what does that look like in the 5-10 year plan?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved houses and making them prettier. I was having this like moment this last week, really thinking about where do we go from here. I think our biggest decision is in terms of contractors and what to hire out and what not to hire out, what to keep. What does Zeke like doing? What does he not like doing? Kind of where we can grow that way. Because I think if we bring on more people and kind of build a team, really become like our own GC, our own project manager, we can either do more or do more faster, whichever. I don't know if we're going to be doing 3 flips at one time by any means, but not yet. But just kind of growing in that way so we handle the projects a little bit differently. I still always love a renovation because just that instant equity add, is just so like fulfilling. Our first 2 properties were turnkey, and I was like, yeah, this is cool and all, but that's not why I got into this. I wanted to like scratch that itch of renovating properties. So definitely value add type of places, whether it's a rental or, a burr or for a flip. Now that we know our buy box a little better, kind of confirmed it after that last property, what's a flip and what's a rental. My rentals, I just want like a small starter size. Man, if it could have no basement in the Midwest and have to deal with that stuff and just be like a little ranch, that's even more perfect. So there's really a couple neighborhoods that we already invest in that I would love to focus more and get more in the same neighborhood, just so even when we go check on something, it's all right there. So I'm going to ramp up the off-market targeting of those few neighborhoods I like, trying to get more rentals. Flips, I mean, they really have just kind of, I'm not going to say fall in our lap, but our realtors kind of got our eye out. I'm going to have my eye out a little bit more too, if we can take on more as we hire out more. My husband says, if the numbers make sense, I'm in. Does that mean we're going to go do like, crazy short-term rentals and build some mansion or something? No, like I don't see building on a horizon, but long-term rentals, interject a few flips on the way. And we just like making ugly houses pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, knowing yourself as an investor, like you like the renovation process, you like seeing the befores, the after. I know most people do, but not a lot of people like getting in the nitty gritty. But like you said, like the growth that from when you first started doing those, rent ready homes and then eventually getting to where you are doing creative financing deals, like that's pretty cool. And we'll definitely have to have you come back on. Definitely look at Kelli and her husband's social media because they update that weekly with some pretty cool videos and reels about their projects. So where can people reach out to you, Kelli?
I'm primarily on Instagram at the DIY Duo. It's the.d.i.y.duo. There's a lot of dots in there, but we're technically on YouTube too. I kind of just post on there as well. Funny, we had a reel go viral last night, and we're all still laughing about that one.
Yeah, like 260,000 views or something.
By this morning, it was at like 500,000. It was wild, but it was funny because it wasn't as intended. It was like, Kelli, you're a terrible wife for not packing your husband a lunch, but we'll leave that for another story. But I just like to post like fun reels of us doing projects, and we kind of like poke fun at each other. And so, yeah, follow along. I love all the before and afters too, and kind of share what we're doing week to week there.
Definitely reach out to Kelli, and you can reach out to me at Garcia official on all social platforms, and you can reach out to Anna at
I'm Anna Bialek _realtor on Instagram, Anna Bialek everywhere else. And if you like hanging out with us, I highly recommend joining RPM. I'm not paid, just saying. We're all part of that community.
Rocking the sweater right now.
There you go. I like it. You're walking that, and then Anna and I are matching.
There you go. Yes.
It's like we coordinated it. But I bring that up because we're all in that community, and Jonathan is in that community. And if you didn't have those connections, you wouldn't have had someone to call to say, hey, how do I work through this? So community matters, and we might know one.
Community matters. All right,
it's guys. A really special place.
We'll tune into the next one. Bye-bye.